inside your mind where thoughts divide and mysteries unwind. Join us every Monday evening right here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And you will catch the Fenton Perspective with our great host, Lorian Fenton. Come listen in as she shares her amazing stories from the past to present, along with all of her guest secrets to the future. That's the Fenton Perspective every Monday evening right here from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, only on Revolution Radio. Oh, and you don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Extendivite really works. Just listen to what some people have to say.
Several years ago, I was developing a very severe situation. I called it my flippy heart. It was doing not good things, and I did not want to go to a medical doctor because I just knew they would give me a cover-up pill. I didn't want to get onto that sort of thing at all. When I learned it was garlic and cayenne, and cayenne is a healer. It is a wonderful herb. I said, I think I'm onto something here. I'll tell you, I wouldn't be without it. It did wonderful things for me.
Extendivite is only $69.95 for a 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid. Call now. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Aloha and welcome to Stargate to the Cosmos, and I'm your host, Janet Care Lessin, with my co-host, Dr. Sasha Alex Lessin. Our producer is Thomas Becker, and we are broadcasting here live from Revolution Radio. And our guest today is Miesha Johnston, and she is a second-generation lifelong ET experiencer, MILAB and MK-Ultra survivor. She is a certified hypnotherapist. She specializes in trauma recovery, ADHD Hypnosis, ET regressions, Past Live Regression. She facilitates virtual support groups for ET experiencers, MILAB and MK-Ultra survivors on the internet through Zoom and in her home in Las Vegas, Nevada. She's been facilitating support groups for over 20 years. She's the organizer of the UFO group of Las Vegas. She's also the author of 2 books, Covert Abduction, Military Harassment, Surveillance, Interrogation, and Mind Control. And They Weren't Butterflies, a Monarch Survivor Story, which are both available on Amazon.com. And she also has a new book. Oh, she also runs Vector 5 tours of Las Vegas, where she and Ranger Jay Snow have nightly tours in the Las Vegas Valley where they vector in ships. They have a meditation, and they provide information about the planetary star systems. And it's a wonderful event. I've been to it. It's awesome. Oh, the latest book is Galactic Genealogy, Planetary Origins. It's a companion book to Starseed Galactic Genealogy chart that Miesha has. Wonderful information here on the website for her on aquarianradio.com. Take a look. I have all these pictures and her books and information on all that stuff. Dr. Sasha Alex Lessin, are you there?
Yes, yes, I am. And Miesha, I've been thinking about you a lot because lately, of course, the elites, Bohemian Grove type operations, hypnotizing, drugging, kidnapping people as party favors at their rights, has been very much on my mind. And I know that you're you're out there to help people that are victims, and so that's what's been very much in the news. If you could just at least tell people what kind of thing it is and what can be done about it would be useful.
Okay. Well, hi, and thank you for having me on the show today, or tonight, actually, for you in the East Coast. Yes. Well, where to begin? Okay. So, of course, the reason I have all of these modalities, such as the hypnotherapy and the different things like that, is to assist people who are going through what I went through. And at the time I was going through it, I had no one. All I had to rely on was some therapists that I was talking to, and they wasn't understanding any of it at all. So I was feeling pretty sad and alone and crazy. So I wanted to make places for people to come in and share their experience so that they weren't alone, you know. This is in fact, more and more people are actually coming up with their memories. More and more. It isn't a week goes by. It's probably really isn't a day go by, but that I don't have one or two people come into the group are now remembering some of this horrific, let's call it the umbrella. So the umbrella is where all of the mind control and the MK-Ultra and all of that comes in, and then there's so many projects under that. So Monarch, Montauk, those are the Secret Space Program, Super Soldier. All of these are within that and under that umbrella.
Right, and every day I get somebody too. So I know, I'm exposed. I'm focused on the experiencer aspect, that I get the super soldiers and the MK-Ultra. So we have a practice where we work with people, and we don't have to advertise. It's just out there. People are coming every day. Mm-hmm. And I know you're getting them too.
Yes,
it's just amazing.
It is. And it's because I think the programming starts breaking down at a certain age, and maybe it also breaks down because I believe the consciousness is coming into this planet. The veils are thinning, and I believe that has a lot to do with what people are, how many people are coming up and remembering and awakening to what happened to them.
Yeah.
And who they really
the absolute enormousness of the crimes against humanity that have been perpetrated on innocent people is overwhelming, but we got to face it.
Yes, that's very true. We do. It appears, though, that something's happening because for them to arrest Epstein is a absolute huge. That's wonderful. Epstein is one of the culprits he didn't start it. He just continued it. But these pedophilia rings that travel in big fancy planes and, carry children and young women, actually teenagers, around
right.
for this pedophilia. But they're only talking about the teenagers, but it's also children, guaranteed.
Right, and it's also young. It's also young women that they typically end their career as a party favor when they're about 30. So I read the Transformation of America. Who was that by? I know it's Arizona Wilder, and what's the other lady?
Transformation was let me tell you in a minute, because she wrote a second book. Kathy O'Brien, was that?
Kathy O'Brien. I'd like to read the second book. Yeah. And it was fascinating, although it was a very hard read.
I have not been able to get through it.
Oh, you haven't? Not the first one? It's hard.
Transformation America. No. I would get to I couldn't even get through the first chapter by far. I just was too much. I had every trigger come on to me. And so it's a hard book. Her other book is PTSD, Time to Heal, and it helps you deprogram with the PTSD and such. So it's a good book too. But,
right.
Yeah.
Well, with her transformation talked about this ritual abuse of young women to fracture them into alters so that they can become sex slaves, and they were as an information system. So they would transmit messages by the sex slaves, the couriers, and then they used them, of course, at Bohemian Grove, and they used them at parties, and so. What was implicated was the presidential leaders, Cheney and Reagan and Nixon and all these people, like all the presidents and all the presidents' men are in these parties, and it's kind of like the stories we hear how the priest and especially the popes, they all have to kill babies in order to be part of the club. Well, these apparently all the president's men, and it's both sides. Both sides.
Yeah, both sides.
It's the wealthy. It's not a certain party, but all sides. In order to get into that political system, to be a competitor, you have to do some pretty heinous, horrible things. And so that's what's shocking about Epstein being arrested, because what's happened I don't think that this would be out of the bag if it wasn't, somebody wanted it out. Somebody
exactly
at the puppet master level wants this information out, wants to take down Epstein, wants to take down probably Trump and Clinton. They show them together going to the parties. So
yeah, they probably want to
take these parties.
Well, hopefully it's the ones with the white hats that want to change everything, and hopefully they take every single one of them, and Hollywood and movies and music. It's going to be a huge thing if hopefully Epstein stays alive.
Oh, you think somebody might take him out? Well,
Clinton have a long list of people that they've taken out. So yeah, I do think so.
Well, I think that there are a lot of people that would want to take Epstein out because he's going to implicate the top.
So many.
Yes, he is. Including Trump. So we won't know who actually takes him out if he gets taken out. But what I'm saying is, why did he get caught in the first place? Something's changed.
Yes.
At the top level that they're
Trump will pardon him. Trump will pardon him if he wants.
There's no pardoning for people who do that.
No.
That's not something you can pardon somebody for. Yeah. I think that falls in the state level.
It's the whole consciousness. Like I said, I think it's a good thing that it's being brought out, and you've got to clear all this crap out before we can actually have disclosure, because then if it could happen, and which would be wonderful, it could take down the whole umbrella group and all and bring, so I don't know. It's a big if.
Well, I think some of this, Miesha, has been your work, because you've been holding space on this aspect of the work for 40 years. And so we had the Arizona Wilders and the Kathy O'Briens and the Miesha Johnstons and other people brave enough to say this stuff is going on, and now it's, that's a form of disclosure. Now it's in mainstream news, right? It used to be just in all the conspiracy stuff, and it's like, oh, that Miesha, that's just a conspiracy. But now it's like you've arrived, Miesha. This is in mainstream news. So maybe let's give our listeners a little backstory about your life and what's behind your books. If you want to take about 15 minutes and tell us what's going on, what happened there.
Okay. Well, I was born into an MK-Ultra family. My father, more than likely true, my mother too, but definitely my father was mind controlled. He had been from his childhood, and my mother actually, more than anything, was probably one of the ones that was kind of put to sleep and didn't really realize not really to sleep, but empathically put to sleep. She didn't know. But my father was my handler, and he did the things that he did because he was programmed to do them, and they had done to him, and the torture to him, and he in turn turned it on me. And in fact, one time he said, I'm sorry that I have to do this to you. And at that time he was causing me extreme pain. And he said, but you have to learn how to leave because you're going to endure much more pain than this. So that is, of course, splitting the altars, splitting the conscious.
So who's behind that? With your research, who are the they, and what does MK-Ultra mean? We have some people that probably don't know what this is. So
okay. MK-Ultra is German for mind control, and the paperclip scientists after the German war, and supposedly we won the Nazis. The Nazi scientists came over here, and many of them went into NASA, and many of them went into the space, other parts of the space program, and some of them went into the psychological science aspects, and they started training and teaching methods on mind control. So this was also, the Russians had already been doing it, so we felt, I'm just saying this is why they say that they did anything with it at all, the CIA says, because they felt that they had to, because the Russians were already doing mind control and they had to keep up with them, of course. So, but indeed they did bring these such as Mengele and there's Himmler, and there's so many different names that are involved in it. But they taught the psychiatrists in that field, and I'm not saying all psychiatrists, I'm talking like a CIA group or a special group, learned how to do all of the mind control and the torture. And they found out that if they torture enough, and they also torture with sexuality, with sexual tortures, and they also use drugs like scopolamine and ketamine and other drugs like that, especially scopolamine, it will actually, with the torture, and the personality will split. And they must do it with the child, because an adult would just go mad. And they did do that too. They tried it with adults, and they would just go mad, crazy, end up in a psychiatric hospital. But they found out if they did it with the children, that they would split, the alters would split off, and that the children would not go insane. So they started, and I'd say in probably the late 40s, early 50s, because that started on me in 1952. Because I'm one of them old timers. So they start working with you very young. My first memory is 3, but I would imagine it went on earlier than that. And then, of course, I also found out I was taken to a facility, and this was in Idaho. And if you pull up Idaho ritual abuse and Satanism, you'll find a large amount of it going on in this little old state of Idaho. Well, it's not really a little state, but it's, the population is very spread out because
Say that again, Idaho, what?
Idaho
what? Ritual?
Idaho is the name of the state. Oh, what? Oh, the ritual? You'll find that it has ritual abuse and satanic overtones and all kinds of things happening within, like Blackfoot, Idaho, which is where I was from, and Idaho Falls and other places in Idaho. Now, there's other places too, but this asylum that I was taken to was very near to my grandmother, who was my father's mother, who has been part of his program. So when I became older, they started taking me there to do more of the trauma-based mind control. And that's where they started doing electric shock and the hypnosis, so they could take the alters and then make them into whatever they want and form them into whatever they wanted. So many people I work with have these child alters, such as I did, that were split because of the trauma. So then as you get older, you go into different projects, and I was actually left alone for quite a few years. Maybe it seemed that I don't have the memory of it anyway, from about 12 to 17. And then at 17, just before my birthday, I was taken again. And this time I was actually physically taken. Well, I was physically taken before, but it was like periodically. They take you for she's going to go stay with grandma. So she stays with grandma for 3 days, and it's 3 days of programming, that type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But after this, I was at a college. A guy came in and said that we have a dream project that we'd like to have you guys help us with, and you get paid. So I'm sure because of part of my programming, it was probably a trigger for me. And all I remember is me going into a building just off the campus with people in lab coats and laying down, and that was the end of it. Don't remember anything until 8 months. And that's when the first period of time where it came out where I was taught how to be a beta slave and a beta slave, a sex slave. 8
months of missing time, not just like the experiencers they have months. A few hours. You had 8 months.
8 months.
And how old were you when that happened?
I was just 17. I turned 18 while that 8 month period I was missing.
Did you end up graduating high school, or did you miss?
No, I graduated high school already. That was the summer right after graduation, and they didn't let me have too long before they did get me. But what happened was, so my parents. I gotta make this really fast. All right. So my parents get a call from me, who is not me. It's an alter, that I'm getting married, and here's the information, and put out an announcement, and that's it. And then another month later, which that was in February, and then in March when I turned 18 and could actually be married without their consent. See how they work this.
Right, yeah.
Then I turned 18 in March 15th. On the 19th, I was married. And I contacted I didn't contact they received an announcement. They went to the wedding. I didn't act at all like myself. They thought I was under some drugs, and I couldn't understand. And besides that, as my father and my mother were still in the programming themselves, they didn't think much of it really, other than they hated the husband and thought the whole thing was rough. And there's a lot of detail, but I have it in the book. So then he takes me the very next morning, and nobody sees me for 8 months. They get a call from me when I'm 8 months later. I wake up on a bus, and I see this name that is not my name. Rose, what name is this? I don't know whose name this is. And then on the way home, I get flashes, and I start putting pieces together a little bit. Not a lot, but a little. Then when I get to the bus station, I call my folks. They come and pick me up and said, we haven't heard from you for 8 months. So that happened, all right. And then I tried to get back on with my life. And then the very next year, with not even a full year, I get a call, which sounds like a fax machine. And that's the last thing I remember for another 8 month period. And this time I was taken again, and this time I was taken to San Francisco. The first time I was Seattle is where I woke up on the bus from Seattle, and the second time I woke up in San Francisco, and that's where the Bohemian Grove and that kind of monster stuff that they do there was there. That's when that happened, and that's when a lot of my really heavy training came in. But both. It's really hard for me to piece which is which, but I know the programming was in those 2 years.
So did you see them kill anybody?
Yes.
Yeah. Did you see them kill anybody?
Yes.
Yes.
Can you tell us? Can you tell us about that?
Well, okay.
They're too heavy. We don't have to do it, but.
Well, most of they were killing. They killed some of the kids that were also in the umbrella program that maybe didn't make the grade, and they used them as sacrifices. There's one particular time I'll tell about this one. One particular time, I was in the same white outfits, which is I'd seen before in sacrifices, and I figured I was not really there. I was catatonic, of course, but then. I do remember this. I remember that this guy in a black, there were the humans, and then there was sort of a reptilian up on a shelf, not really a shelf, but it was in a cave, and there was a ledge, and there was a reptilian, and then there was a man in a uniform, which I guess was a lieutenant colonel, because that's always the ones I see in connection to the draconians, not reptilian, but draconians. But at any rate, this guy leaned over to me and said, "It's a good thing that you were good tonight, otherwise you'd be there with them as they were being sacrificed." And that's really the only thing I remember about it. And of course they were sacrificed. And then this is where it gets really foggy, because I also saw children and babies sacrificed, but it flashes back and forth. So it's hard to exactly tell when that happened and where it happened. But I know Seattle was the first place where there were sacrifices.
Is there,
Wow.
So is there a lodge? Where do they tend to do these?
Well, the first one was in this kind of, I would say, like a big, huge castle home type place in Seattle. Either in Seattle or Victoria. I hear something about Victoria Island, and I think that's somewhere in Canada, so it could have been Canada as well, but I'm not positively sure. But I do remember seeing the big, fancy house castle looking thing, and that we were we were in a bus. We were taken around to the back. There were young boys from about 11 to 13, and then there were us young women, older teenagers, and we were the party favors, you know. So we were taking up the back entrance and the party favors. There's a whole long detail, which I do go into my book. But at that party is where I saw Hollywood names, which I don't give names out. I'm sorry, I just don't. But I think that why keeps me alive. But anyway, it was Hollywood people. Now there has been some people who have already said their names, so I will say Jack Benny and Bob Hope. But the politicians I won't say, because a couple of them are still alive. And so that's the kind of party it was. There was politicians, Hollywood, music industry, and that kind of thing. And we were the party favors, so were the boys.
Right, so they liked both sexes for their party favors.
Yeah, in fact, Eyes Wide Shut is so real, except that they don't use prostitutes. They don't use witting prostitutes. They use unwitting, kidnapped kids and teenagers.
And young people, yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Miesha, I imagine you already did this in your work, but, you know, in essence, what would you like to say to those people that participated in those things? What is it? What would you really...
Karma's a bitch.
Karma's a bitch.
Right.
And it will come back to you. Maybe not in this lifetime, but it will come back to you again. And it will come back tenfold. Not at the hands of us, because we're not going to go that route again. But it will come back to you.
So were you actually at Bohemian Grove? Do you have any memories of Bohemian?
I absolutely do. And I've been working with a couple of whistleblowers to get more information about it. And I was actually describing Bohemian Grove in a place under him, because Bohemian Grove is huge. It's a huge property. Has a lake and everything. It's a huge property. And in the back area, not really the back, it's really basically more in the middle, there are these I thought of them as cottages, but actually, apartment building cottages. I couldn't ever quite remember, but I knew that there was something back there. They were like chalets, let me put it that way, but they had levels, and this is where they brought certain ones that came for the Bohemian parties would go there for their entertainment. there was also big parties, outdoor parties in that area too. There was a couple of big chalets or apartment chalets, let's call them, for lack of a better word. It's just they look like chalets to me. They had a European look to them. And then the boys would be on the other side. And so sometimes during the parties, I'd actually see the boys come out and stuff. But otherwise, we could not talk or interact with anybody. And in between that, cages comes to mind. But I can't remember myself being in cages, but I saw others in cages. So I assume I was in cage too. I just didn't want to look at it. Not that time anyway. So, yeah, so Bohemian Grove is
do they
a really popular place.
Kill people there too in the rituals?
I don't remember, to tell you the truth.
You don't remember? Okay, yeah.
No, I don't remember the rituals there. I just remember the parties there.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, even under normal trauma, you probably wouldn't remember, but they also block the memory. So,
Miesha, did you have any friends that had gone through experiences with you that you recognized each other and are helping each other? At people that you contacted?
I have been searching for people. I found one guy that we were in the same place at the same time, but we did not see each other. He was a Montauk boy. And then in the Secret Space program, I had two people who we recognized each other.
Oh.
Actually, they recognized me first, and I fought it for a long time because I just didn't believe that I could be. I felt I was too old, that I had to have been in the first group, and that they didn't do the Secret Space program, but they did do the Secret Space program a lot earlier than we had thought. So that came up, and up there, it was actually three times actually. The first time was very young, at 11, and then but I don't want to go into that yet until I get back to, the other questions that you're asking me. We can go to that later. But then I'm not sure if the 8-month period had any of that time. It could have. I don't know. I really can't tell you for sure, because I know up there I was there off and on from 11 years old to and then remembering at 23 again, and then went on for I don't know how long after that. But you had any more questions about the Montauk and the Monarch thing first, and then
tying this into the bigger picture. What a lot of people tell us is that the military or intelligence things, when they kidnap people, they want to know what happened in your interaction with the extraterrestrials.
Right.
They're bullying you to say everything that you even thought about, and that might help them. Is that accurate?
This is a different thing.
That's the MILAB.
This is like that's the MILAB. But this is the part where this is the parties and the rituals, like Eyes Wide Shut. That you didn't watch. I couldn't get through that movie.
Are they the same? Yeah. Is it the same deal or not? That's my question.
No. It's not. It's part of the umbrella that all these things are under, but it's different. The MILAB is, that does come later in my life, but that did not come until quite a bit later in my life, the MILAB experience.
Oh.
But it's the next process, and it was after the Secret Space program, and then it became the MILAB after that. Or it could have been the same time. I'm not positive sure, to tell you the truth, because that was about 89 when I was having the MILAB experiences. And I really only have had 2 regressions to find out besides what I could put together, and I remembered. I've only had 2 regressions, so I can't really tell you chronologically how things go. But I do know that as at 30 years old, you're no good for the beta programming or even the alpha programming, the courier or any of that. The courier also, by the way, when you were saying about courier, I do remember being on jets and private jets, and I do remember being taken to foreign countries to be a courier for different dignitary and politicians and things like that, sending back messages back and forth. That's one of the ways they do it.
Right. And from the book, it seemed like they triggered the memories through like a sexual act.
They
so
do.
You would, yeah. It's pretty.
Yeah, they do. Because there's so many different altars that are running, and this is what I've learned from my work with doing hypnosis and trauma relief on hypnosis on people, is that the sex act has has the message in it, right? So they have to access that particular altar. Now, the altar that walked up to the door and said, "It's a bright sunny day," and the man said something back, which I don't remember, which got me in the door. And then after the sexual torture thing that he did, which is when brings up the message that they're looking for, that the courier has.
Right.
So within one project or program, not project, within one, what's the word I'm trying to say? Well, one thing you're supposed to go do, you could have 2 or 3 altars accessed through that time.
Okay.
That's why it's so very hard to remember details, because that one altar, even if you undo, I've integrated Charlene. She's one altar, but then there's other altars that they have who are connected to that altar, and then they have secrets too. So it's really a tangled web.
Right.
They may have like 4 main altars, and then all these other little altars that they, for each part of the piece of the project that they're having somebody do, whether it's courier or whether it's setting up a senator with a sexual deviating act, and while he's being taped, so that you now have him in the bag, and anything you want to go through it in Congress is going to go, or the Senate is going to go. That's congressmen, senators, it's all of them. I've seen a lot of that. So, but again, that was another altar. So they have these little altars within the one altar, and then they have the altar that they've programmed, and there's keywords that awakens that altar, or accesses that altar, I should say. Right. Yeah. Keywords and actions. I hope that makes sense to people.
It does.
Okay.
The one thing that didn't make sense to me was your allusion to sexual torture. That was the first time I heard that. Other people said that, they did a sexual act, but not that it was torture.
Okay. Well, in this particular one, it was torture because he was terrifying me with a very large knife. And, and so he'd run the knife up and down my skin just enough to scratch me and things like that. So I felt that as, a torture. So maybe that. Whoa. But to me, it's all torture because you didn't ask for it. So.
Right. Against your will.
And with these sexual, they aren't lovemaking. They aren't lovemaking. Oh. They're beatings, they're chokings, they're all these things. Because those monsters get off on. That's what those monsters get off on.
Kathy O'Brien, she had like an 8-year-old daughter, and they called Cheney Big Dick or something like that, And she said, "Oh no, my poor child is going to go in and, get raped by that." So that's how horrendous it is. And I don't know.
It is.
I guess. And so that's torture. That's definitely not.
That's right.
Nothing
It's torture.
loving or kind about it. It's just
it's not even the
great.
sex acts. They don't. It isn't about the sex. It's about sealing the memory completely. At the same time, getting their self pleased the way they sick-minded people like to do. I don't even like all people. So that's why I say Epstein and all of them, may they rot in hell.
Yeah. I keep seeing them getting rounded up, and they put them on the ship for Mars. And they go to
Mars?
Bay.
Oh,
yeah.
Good. Good. They could be the cannon fodder.
They talk about the reptiles that are running loose, and so they set them loose on Mars, and they say, run. Oh, feedback.
No.
So run for it.
And Rice says to tie tails on them in that book that you read, Janet.
Tie tails on them.
Oh yeah, and Rice puts
and they also can be cannon fodder for the other aliens that they fight on Mars. There's these big 10, 14 foot it's not really a mantid, but it's kind of like a mantid, but it's also like an ant and a little bit like a spider.
I heard about them.
Yeah.
They munch on you.
When I was 11, they dressed us up in uniforms, big groups of us, and they dress us up in uniforms and send us out to look like soldiers. And actually right behind us and above us were the real soldiers. And so when those creatures came out and started killing all of us, then the soldiers would come in and kill them. So I call us cannon fodder. So let's let them be
bait.
Your bait.
Let's let them be bait. Yes, let's let them be bait. Wouldn't that be nice?
Oh my goodness. So yes, that's the bait. Wow. Anyway, that was fun.
Yeah, because with the children and stuff, they didn't, because they're 7 to 14 feet tall. They don't even realize what is an adult and what is a child. And besides that, there's different alien sizes anyway. So you dress some up like in uniform, and they don't know. So they come out to fight, and that's their method. And this would happen over and over and over and over and over again for many, many, many years. I can't even remember how long. And then in between that, when people would die or be chopped up, or like I had a chunk out of my side, they put us in the juvie tank, which is, I found out that in my regression why they called it the juvie tank. And I don't know if anybody else does, but they called it where I was the juvie tank, which is we're juveniles, and it's a rejuvenation tank that puts us back together so we can go out and fight, or not really fight, but go out and be another bait, a soldier bait for another day. So it just happens over and over again, and until they finally see your worth in something else.
So you're trapped in this endless hell. And that sounds like what Russ Kellett says.
Who?
I don't know if you've ever interviewed Russ Kellett, but he's a super soldier, and he says...
Oh, no, I always grab these names up. Kellett, huh?
With Russ Kellett, yeah. He's
he's
sitting
in
at a
Liverpool.
stop sign, and he's on his bike. Next thing you know, he's fighting, and he'll get killed, and they put him in the rejuvenation chamber, and they send him back out for war. You can't die. There's no death. You can't escape it through death.
No, you can't.
You're stuck in this endless war. But yours is like another aspect of it because you're female. But I've never heard that about they dress up the kids so they can be the bait. That was very interesting.
Yeah, and I don't know. I can't tell you for sure. That particular part came out completely in regression. I didn't have any memories all before that, except they did have memories dressing up, and I knew I wasn't a man. I knew I was a girl, and we were in uniforms, and we were running in these underground like cave place, but it was not like any kind of rocks I'd ever seen, and the air was very hard to breathe. I mean, you kept losing your breath and panting because the air was really thin. So that's the only memory I had, and I tried, and so I went in with that memory, and this is what I came out with. So I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know. I still, it's so hard for me to fathom the whole 20 and back thing. And now my brain is not my brain, my my subconscious mind is trying to get me to understand 3 different situations. So now I just, I don't, it's hard to.
Are you
fathom.
getting more 20 and back people come into your support
Oh, yes.
groups?
Yes,
Wow.
very much so.
Well, I'm working to document them. If anybody wants to talk, send them my way, because I just find it fascinating. I think it's because I've been a part of it as well. So,
right.
To me, this is disclosure. The people that are brave enough to come out and tell the story, you're being very brave here, Miesha, and you've been one of the bravest people I've ever met. You've been talking about this for years now, and holding space with these groups and doing massive healing with all these people, writing books and I was there when you were writing your first book, and now you've got your 3rd book done. So you're doing incredible work here.
Well, thank you.
And I haven't been around for a year. It's only been a year, but I've been back here. I took 2019 off. I'm not on the road like you are. So you've been out there. Tell us a little. Let's see. Where do we want to go next? Continue your story, and then we're going to go in the break in about 10 minutes here. So,
okay,
go ahead. What next?
All right.
happened?
So, then the next thing was, so then I'm 18 years old. I've turned 18 during this Seattle time. And then the next time I was just about to tell you how the following year, I was trying to go on with my life, and I answered the phone, and it sounded like a fax machine, and that's the last thing I remember. And next thing is I'm in San Francisco. So that's when the Bohemian Grove is, and that's where I was able to piece together the whole madam. There's a particular house that I was in where this madam teaches us how to be the very best at pleasing in sex. So that's part of that project. And then, of course, that's where the errand, being the errand, doing the errands, doing the courier stuff, other kinds of errands, such as putting somebody in a place where they're going to be killed. So there's some of the things that happen that I really, really still feel responsible for, but I don't know if that was a good person or a bad person, but I just have a strong memory of taking somebody to a place, then I leave them and go, with an excuse to go to the powder room or something, and then they get killed.
They get killed. Wow.
Yeah. It's a hit. Mm-hmm. So that type of thing went on. Just trying to remember some of the other things.
So that's part of why you're doing all this, because you feel guilty on some level, even though this is a phenomenon, even though you're mind controlled and you can't not do it, you still feel guilty. So, like Stuart Swerdlow was a part of all that with the Montauk people, and a lot of people, they're part of it, and they couldn't stop it while it was happening, so then they dedicate their lives to, trying to make amends. But of course, it was just.
Oh. Yeah, I know. If I may, the function of existential guilt is improvement in your behavior.
Right.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
But that's that mind control. That's what really gets people, because it's like you're watching yourself do things, but you can't not do it.
Yeah.
You're like,
yeah. Well, yes, and in fact, I woke up during my wedding and looked at myself in the mirror and was screaming, "Oh my God, no, no, no," because I knew what was happening. And and during the during the hypnosis, at time when when Darlene first came out, the altar, so people know who that is, came out, my therapist was saying, "So what happened? How come you don't remember your wedding?" And she comes in to play and says, well, it's because it's not her wedding, it's my wedding. And she says, well, who are you? And she says, I'm Darlene, and it's my wedding. And she's asleep like she's supposed to be. So this is the whole thing that they do. They'll put part of us to sleep. So occasionally we'll wake up and we'll see, and it's like we're in her horror, seeing things are happening with no control, no way to control. I mean, you can't even physically control the body. It's like you're looking at a nightmare that you have no control out of.
Right.
Wow.
So you got me in a frustrated mood here today, so I'm probably saying a lot more than I ordinarily would. But I'm so frustrated because my computer just died on me just before the show, and I'm really frustrated about
It's all perfect in the divine plan because it's coming out and it's supposed to. But, of course, we're just tracking you. So whatever you want to reveal or not reveal, that's up to you. But
but it just seems to be pouring out of my mouth today.
It's perfect. There is another world that most of you out there in radio land don't know about. But here's a survivor. She's here. She's telling you what's real. So this is what's really happening.
Yeah, it is. It's what's really happening under the guise of, I don't know how many other girls have this happen to them where they end up getting married to somebody they don't even know and taken away for months at a time and the same type of thing. And I've been looking for people who have gone through this so far because I am a bit on the older side, being born in 1949. And, most of the people I run into, including Kathy O'Brien and of course, Bryce Taylor and Arizona Wilder, are all probably about 8 or so, maybe years younger than I am. So what you've experienced and I've experienced is a slightly different than what they've experienced too. So I believe that the people like ourselves in our age group in fact, I'm sure they've hoped with hope that we've all died off so that we won't ever memory. Because the first, let's say, I don't like to use the wave, but anyway, the first group of people that were programmed and such into these programs, it was done with extreme torture. It was done with deprivation, being in boxes, being in rooms, with little box rooms like a closet, and living there as a child, and having electric shock. And having all kinds of imagery put into your head that is like horrifically awful until you're desensitized. In fact, this San Francisco trip started in Idaho, and supposedly I went to San Francisco, but it's a long story that I found out that we did not, and that's in my book too, that we did not go to San Francisco first. We went to New York, and I've been told by whistleblowers that I'm owed money from MIT because of all the things that they were researching with me. Because I am a psychic medium, and I've always been one. And as a child, I was a medium. I talked to, mostly ETs, but maybe Dad, but I don't remember their dad. I only remember talking to the ETs telepathically and communicating with them, and also galactic language. I started doing that very young and was speaking with the galactic beings, and we're talking to very positive galactic beings. So those are kind of things that they were interested in, and I interface with the aliens, so they were interested in that as well. So I believe that's what happened.
The positive thing is that you become psychic and you're able to communicate with. That's the upside of it. But that's part of what they.
How did you escape the life?
In 1989, I just woke up. Okay, as far as I was concerned, I had been married for 7 years. Really didn't know my husband, did not remember my children's births, did not remember
You there?
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
She fell off.
Okay.
Gosh, it was all shit I didn't remember, and then she was gone.
She'll be back. We'll get her back after the break. So, maybe she has to switch out her computer. So we're coming up on the break in like 30 seconds now. So we will have Miesha Johnston back. She's going to tell us more about her incredible life as an MK-Ultra mind-controlled sex slave, and then how she got free of it, how she's now doing support groups, and she's helping people all over the planet. What would you like to say, Sasha?
That's a great summary. And if we have a little time, Janet is doing some incredible research herself about. It's so mind blowing. I'm going to let her introduce it.
Well, we're coming up on the break, so anyway, I've been studying the time travelers, and especially the story about Donald Trump and John Teeter, the first, or John Teeter the second, we've had on this show many times, but there's a connection between the two of them. So, Matt, are we waiting for the music? Is it back online? Is it going to work?
Oh, we should hear it.
We should hear it. Okay, we're just waiting for the music. Because I have 56 before the hour. Normally it's coming on by now. But anyway, I'll be getting that show for us. Okay, there we go. There's the music back. Okay. So we'll get Miesha back during the break, and we'll be back in 5 minutes. Thank you for listening. We'll see you in 5.
Radio at freedomslips.com, and we'll be right back after this message.
Wadiya will remain a dictatorship. Or be quiet. Why are you guys so anti-dictators? Imagine if America was a dictatorship. You could let 1% of the people have all the nation's wealth. You could help your rich friends get richer by cutting their taxes and bailing them out when they gamble and lose. You could ignore the needs of the poor for healthcare and education. Your media would appear free, but would secretly be controlled by one person and his family. You could wiretap phones. You could torture foreign prisoners. You could have rigged elections. You could lie about why you go to war. You could fill your prisons with one particular racial group, and no one would complain. You could use the media to scare the people into supporting policies that are against their interests.
Tune in Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, for Liberation Nation with Deacon John, where America comes to hear the truth.
I know this is hard for you Americans to imagine, but please try.
Ohio Exopolitics will be on from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern on Studio A. Mark Schneider will have guests on that will discuss many important topics, including the state of the world today. However, much of the show will be dedicated to the writings of Edward Albert Meyer. Let me read a short passage from one of his writings. Love is the highest principle of creation, and through it, everything exists in absolute logic. All of nature in its indescribable splendor is nothing but the love of creation, which is expressed visibly. The love of creation is everywhere, because without it, nothing at all would be able to exist. Please join Mark on Ohio Exopolitics from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern on Studio A.
It is no secret that the so-called mainstream media is best described as controlled propaganda. countless news stories are either totally ignored or spun with half-truths, and because of this, essential facts and vital information are often compromised. Join Dr. Ott every Friday night on Studio B at 10 p.m. Eastern and learn why The Story Behind the Story was nominated for a Peabody Award in its second year of producing unparalleled broadcasting excellence in 1997. That is, if you really care about learning the truth.
Transcending time and space, let us take you to the place inside your mind where thoughts divide and mysteries unwind. Join us every Monday evening right here on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time. And you will catch the Fenton Perspective with our great host, Lorian Fenton. Come listen in as she shares her amazing stories from the past to present, along with all of her guest secrets to the future. That's the Fenton Perspective every Monday evening right here from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Time, only on Revolution Radio. Oh, and you don't need to expect us. We're already here.
Extendivite really works. Just listen to what some people have to say.
Several years ago, I was developing a very severe situation. I called it my flippy heart. It just was doing not good things. And I did not want to go to a medical doctor because I just knew they would give me a cover-up pill. I didn't want to get onto that sort of thing at all. When I learned it was garlic and cayenne, and cayenne is a healer. It is a wonderful herb. I said, I think I'm onto something here. I'll tell you, I wouldn't be without it. It did wonderful things for me.
Extendivite is only $69.95 for a 2-month supply of either capsules or liquid. Call now. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Janet, you're on mute if you're back.
Aloha, welcome back.
Hi, welcome back to Stargate. Welcome back. I'm Janet Carol Lessin. That was Dr. Sasha Alex Lessin, and you're on, this is Stargate to the Cosmos on Revolution Radio with our producer, Thomas Becker. Let's see, Janet Carol Lessin, Sasha Alex Lessin, Thomas Becker. Miesha Johnston is our host, and we're on Revolution Radio.
I'm a guest.
Studio B. No, you're a guest, but you are
you're the
a host on the show, but I'm the host, she's the guest. I don't know who I am. I'm over here in this, my house is so hot. You know, we had 3 fires in Maui the last few days. Global, whatever this crap is, warming, cooling, is happening. We were just looking at the fires yesterday. Okay, so when I'm going to go to commercial before we go back to the show. So please, everybody, remember that we are listener supported. We need you to go over to the donation button on revolution.radio and make your donation because that keeps us on the air, pays all the bills. Matt Painter, how are things going with the fundraising?
We still need $970. We hadn't received a donation in like 4 days. Please, people, kick in up a couple of bucks.
Yeah, just skip a cup of coffee today and give it to us. Okay, Dr. Lessin. Are you there? Are you back?
Yes.
Yes, I am.
Where we left off, we've been interviewing Miesha Johnston, who is in the clutches of a horrendous program of victimization, which turns girls into dead people or couriers or people marking others for death and all kinds of horrible things that are just unthinkable. It's and so the question that I left with, I was just building up in me to the end of the show was, well, how did you escape from this? And that's what we're asking you now. How did you get out of this? What happened?
Okay. So there's a little bit that happened in between that. I woke up in 1989. Just woke up. It's like I'd never been born before. I didn't really, I'd been married since 82, so I really didn't know my husband. My children, didn't know I didn't remember their births. I didn't remember their talking, their first words. I didn't remember anything. And we moved from Utah, which is another bad spot, but where I was abducted from the second time. And then we moved to Las Vegas, Nevada, and right across the street were experiencers. And these people started opening me up. It's like the angels sent them to me. And I started awakening, and then I went to the therapist and got more information. And then, I continued on my path, and in 1991, I had the UFO Contact Center International, and I was the director of it for this area. And then I started the experiencer groups and the group in 91. So my experiencer groups have been going since 1991. So now, fast forward, I'm kind of going on with my life and actually living my life now and having a good life. And then I'm divorced, sort of good, but anyway, I'm divorced, and then I moved to California. There's a lot happening between there, but I moved to California, and now it's in San Diego, and now San Diego is one of the capitals of the world of CIA and mind control, and everything is there. It's a terrible place. So, and the way I moved there is I was actually lured there by, I thought were three of my friends, but they turned out to be not. Instead, when I got there, soon after that, they tried to set me up to put me in a state hospital. Long story short, but anyway, then I went ahead and a lot happened there. A lot of MILAB experiences happened there, continually. The MILAB started right around 1987-ish or 88, something like that, in retrospect, as I remember, but I really didn't remember much about it until 1989. So then, I'm in San Diego now, and it's, 1999. And I work with Melinda Leslie. We're going to write a book about this whole thing and my lab experience, and I'm bringing the MK-Ultra and the mind control aspect of it. And then a lot of things happen. 3 automobile accidents in 1 year. Countless people threatening me and my family, and being ran off the road in my car, and then just so many countless things happened to try to get us to stop doing the book. Actually, I'm not going to leave this whole part out because this is really important. So Melinda and I think you've had Melinda on here, so you already know about the story, but for those people who don't know, Melinda and I were on the Art Bell show just as he was leaving it. And so we were with George Siegel, was doing the interview at that time, and we were on the what was it called now? I can't remember.
Coast to Coast?
No, it wasn't Coast to Coast then. It was, gosh, I can't remember now what it was called.
A Man Alone in the Desert at Night or something.
No. It was Dreamland. It's called Dreamland.
Oh, Dreamland. Okay.
Yes. Okay. So we were on Dreamland, and she was staying at my house while we were there. My phone went down because I was talking about the draconians in the underground base, and my phone went down. And then I'm thinking now about this darn computer going down now. No, never mind. All right. So the phone went down, and so I finally got borrowed a neighbor's phone and finally got back on, but it was almost over there. So anyway, so after the interview that night, we went ahead and went to bed. She was staying on my couch, and I was in the bedroom. And then the next day, we woke up and worked on some things. We were going to be speaking at a conference, and so we were working on our speech because we kind of did a tag team speech in those days. And then that night we went to bed, and when I woke up the next morning, I walked out to the couch and I saw that my coffee table was broken. And I said, "Melinda, what happened to my coffee table?" And she said, "I don't know. I didn't do anything with it. I didn't break it." And I said, "Well, I'm not saying you did, but I don't know how it broke overnight." And I had no idea. And then she had to go back that day. So she went back home, and I started feeling really creepy. So I got a hold of a hypnotherapist, and I did a regression and found out that night we had intruders came and break through the front door, Jimmy the Lock, I guess you'd call it. And they were in black uniforms, wearing night vision goggles, and they took both Melinda and I. All I can tell you is what I remember on mine. So they dragged me down the stairs, one guy on each side of my condo, and then put me in a van. And then she was already in the van, and because I felt feet, and then I was like in and out of consciousness the whole way, and then woke up to be in front of a light, some kind of a light and sound. And then I went right back to sleep again. That was, she corroborated that was when we went through the fence, the gate of the either Pendleton base or Miramar in San Diego. And then the next thing I remember is I'm sitting on a table, and there's this lieutenant colonel. I was always a lieutenant colonel that did the screaming and yelling, and sometimes he didn't do the torture, but he took me to the people who did the torture. And the God, what you thinking now? My brain's going. Interrogation. There's the word. Mm-hmm. See, I have a few little blank spots, so I have them all written out on the computer, and so that I wouldn't forget those words.
Right. Yes.
And my computer died.
Well, this is traumatic too. When you're recounting trauma, you're dealing with your trauma. I mean, this is traumatic. What was happening to you?
Yeah.
And
the last time you said the lieutenant colonel last time he had a reptilian on his shoulder, like you could see he was directly in cahoots. Was this the same sort of a thing?
Well, no. Yeah, it wasn't on his shoulder. He was yelling at me about being on the radio show and writing the book, and said, "You're going to go home and find yourself a husband because it's not going to bring you any happiness." And to bring the point home to you, he walks out, and in walks this draconian, and then the draconian does a horrific mind thing, putting my family and I into jeopardy, showing how we were killed. And so that was the end of it. And when woke up in bed, right? Okay, so found out that my house, my door had been jimmied, and there was some physical evidence of the break-in, and they wanted that because they wanted me to know that it wasn't no dream, that they wanted me to shut up. So then after that, I decided to go home and tell my family I'm done. And on the way home is when they ran me off the road in an unmarked white van. And then I got home, stayed, I was safe because I my angels were with me and let me run into a soft cactus tree instead of running in onto the oncoming traffic instead, because I did go up in the oncoming traffic and went back down in the medium, and there was a tree that I never could find after that, but there was a tree there, and I ran into the tree. And then I told my kids I was leaving and quitting, and I went back to San Diego and turned my car in, drove across town to give Melinda her book, my tapes that I had, and more information, and my interviews with with Special Forces guys and other military people.
Oh, sorry. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, and with other military people, and then also giving my books away, and I was ran off the road again. I was hit broadside and spun around 3 times. Again, not a scratch on me, and my car, though, my rental was totaled, so they were real serious. It was very evident. There had been a couple other things, so I actually went to what I knew was a very kind reptilian being that had been my protector since 1989. He came into my life in 1989. And I had found out that I'd had a life as a reptilian. That's where I knew him. And many of us are coming forward. Many people are coming forward realizing that they've had or having, let's say, because it all goes on simultaneously, they are having a life as another ET. So, and then they come back into our life. So he was sent to protect me. I found out later. But at any rate, I went home and I prayed, basically. Well, actually, at first I was sitting at the edge of a mountain overlooking not a mountain, but a cliff overlooking the ocean, and saying, if you don't get this changed, I'm going to go over the cliff because I cannot put my family in jeopardy any longer. So that night I went back and I prayed and I meditated, and that night I was taken to meet this councilless consortium of all different types of ETs. And I asked them for help and please let me cancel my contracts. And they assisted me with that. And then they also told me that they had sent me a protector, which was Ayano, which was the reptilian. It's more like an amphibian reptilian. And because basically this is how it went. I was like whining and saying, I can't do this anymore. Please let me come home. Please let me come home. And they said, beloved, do you not remember you asked for this mission? You must complete your mission. And I whined some more and told them how terrible things were. And then again, this is all telepathic. And with each person that talks, I can see who's talking. I can hear them telepathically, and I can see this energy around them when they talk too. And I don't know, it could have just been in the chairs. I'm not sure exactly what it was, but I could tell who was talking. And this one did most of the talking. And there was even, I will actually tell you, there was a reptilian, a couple of different types of reptilians. There was a couple of different types of, like a mantid, and then something that was resemble it. I didn't see any grays. I saw about 4 different humans and a couple of, one that was really just energy, and another one was, I'm not exactly sure what that was. It was like more amoeba kind of energy thing. Mm-hmm. And they were all benevolent, they were part of a very benevolent council. And but the one that did most talking was the one to me that looked like Babaji, actually. He looked like an old Babaji, not the young Babajis, but an old Babaji with a beard and long white hair. So that's what I took it to be, Babaji. And that's when he said, well, we can help you cancel your contracts, when I whined the last time. And so I did. I canceled all of my contracts, and my life kind of began there again. And then I moved back here. Now, see, so that's what did it. You asked me the question. I'm sorry it took me so long to get to it, but
that's
that's the answer. That's the answer.
Well,
My galactics saved me.
To whom or how did you pray? What did you do when you prayed?
I talk out loud. That's what I call it. I talk out loud to the galactics, and I said, and because I knew they were the only ones that are going to help me, them and my belief system of God, God's source, and Jesus. So I said, I need help. I can't do this anymore. Please, if you don't help me, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I, went to bed crying and praying and meditating, I guess you might call it too. And then that's what happened.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So, then my life kind of changed. Now, I did, of course, already get out of it, right? I already had got out of all of my contracts. I decided no more ET stuff, no more anything, because I wanted to start over. But that was not really to be, because later, it was like almost 9 years I was out of it. I was, working as executive secretary for building industry and builders, home builders and stuff. And I just tried to go on with my life. And however, when I look back on it, there's still times that little things happen. Whether some of it was, I think they had a hands-off kind of thing for me, but yet I still had problems. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it was that they couldn't take my life, or they couldn't, completely have me. But I still had things happen that I would not be able to explain, except for that they were factions of government and stuff, because I still had some funny things happen. I ran into clones. I had weird things and stuff like that. That could have been the time when...
Clones of you? You ran into clones of you? Clones? Yeah. You mean of you?
I had people tell me how they saw me at this place and that place in San Diego, and I was never in those places. I saw, when I moved back to Vegas, I had people contact me on the internet and say they knew me, and I didn't know them from Adam. I've had since then 2 other times where people have said, I talked to you, and I says, no, I wasn't there. Yeah, I did. I said, look, I'm at another conference. There's no way I could be at that conference talking to you. I was not there. And they go, well, it was you. No, it wasn't.
Wow.
So, interesting thing about that is, during this last regression, I got a lot of answers on that too, because I wanted to know what's with the clone thing and what happened, with me, and what has, because I had 2 different people that I regressed, and right out of nowhere they said that they're talking, and they go, you were there. I see you. You're there. And I went, what? No. So that kind of blew me away. And then I had another person that was from Europe said the same thing, that, oh yeah, you were there. You were the what did they call? Okay. So James Rink called me. I was the, what did he call me? The case manager. And the other person from Europe called me, the den mother or something like that.
Wow. So, and this is identical to what Penny's saying about alters that are operating at the same time, alters of her. It's the same thing as you're calling clones. It's the same phenomenon. And they leak through. You get glimpses. Oh, this is amazing.
Yeah, that's right. And I believe that's what I believe. I truly believe that I probably wasn't up there in space this second time, or I could have, I don't know. But I believe it was my clones, and I got little glimpses of it. But there are the other aspect. My therapist, hypnotherapist, said, "Yeah, but if you weren't there, how do you have so much detail?" And I'm like, oh, I don't know that. I don't know. It's not a science, This whole thing about remembering.
Wow.
But so the next time after being the young child, then I remember myself being 23 years old. Now I'm looking at myself at 23. Well, that's when I was trying to get on with my life after I came back from San Francisco. And when I looked back on that, I went, so what did I do? Well, I don't remember. Did I work? Well, no, I don't remember. Where did I live? Well, no, I don't remember. So I even had blank spots then. So I believe that's exactly when it was. So at 23, I was, out of the part, anyway, I earned myself another position. And this position was kind of like a den mother and kind of like a caseworker. I worked with the I worked with the super soldiers. And see, I had remembered these flashes for a long time, working with super soldiers, feeling like they were my kids, all of this. And I figured it was all done in underground bases. But now I understand it was on Mars, and I don't know where else. I think just Mars. So I would be the one who would put together, help them learn about their psychic abilities. Not that I would be the teacher, but there was all kinds of people and teaching and doing things because they wanted the super soldiers for something specific. So from the very time they got on there, which is some of them as young as 9 years old, we were to train them, to program them to be the super soldiers that they were supposed to be. I recognized Max Spears. I recognized James Rink. I recognized Tyler, Laura. I recognized several people when I went to I actually spoke at Laura Fenton's, what is it called? Secret Space Program. No, it wasn't called. It was called Super Soldier Summit. Super Soldier Summit. Yes.
Right.
Yes. And so I spoke there and I met all of them. In the meeting I met them, I just felt like they were my kids. I recognized them. And so I kept in contact with most of them. But Max was going to be on my radio show just when he got back from Europe, but he was coming over here, and he was going to be on my radio program just before he was killed. So, anyway.
So he didn't make it onto your show?
He never made it onto my show. James has.
And some people, James has, and I've had James. Some people say that Max really didn't die. He faked his death, or he had to fake his death. But
I hope so.
What do you think?
What do I think? Oh, and when I watched that recording of him when he went on the trampoline, you remember his last recording? To me, I felt like he was dying right there in the camera. I felt like he was losing his essence, his energy when he was on the camera, and then they took a break and then he got on the trampoline and then they brought him back. I don't believe they did bring him back. I believe that's probably when he died. I believe maybe, I don't know how they did it, but they probably did some cutting or something. I don't believe he lived. That was the day he died, actually, was, that interview.
Okay.
Do you remember that interview?
No, I didn't see that. Yeah.
Oh, you should see it because you can see where he's dying. First of all, it's
on YouTube.
Programming is breaking down, and he's like, he can hardly say his words, and something's wrong. And I knew it was wrong, and I think they're doing psychotronic weaponry and trying to kill him right now. So I don't know what happened, but I do believe they killed him. I don't know who.
Well, I saw a picture of him with some kind of black goo coming out of his forehead, and he was dead. I saw a picture.
The black goo, the old famous black goo, yeah.
The famous black goo was coming out of his head.
Yeah.
And somebody showed me this picture, and I went, and it was very late, and I went, oh my God, I think that's not the last thing I want to see before I go to bed.
No.
So,
yeah, I don't think I
got out
want
of
to
there.
see that picture. I don't want to see that picture. But I did know about that. I did know about the goo, the black goo, and I believe that's what they finally did to kill him. It's artificial intelligence, kind of something or other, alien, and I believe that that's how they can take some people out with things like that. So,
now, do you know why they want to take him out?
Oh, you should have listened to his interview. His interview was spilling the beans, big time.
Oh, I see.
He was talking about the Queen.
Oh, okay. Where, if you can find that link, I would like to listen to that interview.
I
Definitely.
will. I have it on my
appreciate
YouTube.
that.
Yeah, I have it on my YouTube channel.
Okay, yeah, I think I need to tune into that.
So,
okay.
Anyway, so I'm just going to go for a couple more seconds on that because I'd like to get into something really positive, the positive
Okay,
part
let's end with positive. I like the positive.
Yeah, all right.
Positive.
So with the space, okay, so I was just doing that over and over and over again. But I actually did really well as this den mother, caseworker, super soldier mother. And I had success with my soldiers not dying when they go out to war or be the pilots or go off to the other things. They'd survive. And it was because of a different kind of training, a training with compassion and love. Mm-hmm. And the Nazis kind of realized that was a workable thing. So they kind of thought, we'll adopt this. So I believe they kind of changed their pattern of torture and all of that. They found out there was a better way to do it. And so the kids and I, the group that I work with, we found it together. So I had a record of having more soldiers live. And the reason I did that was because I wanted to make sure they did live. I didn't want them to go out there and die like I had, even though they brought them back, I still didn't want that to happen. And so it was just
it's pretty horrendous when you die and you're revived. And is it like a cat with 9 lives? You only get so many times and they can't revive you, or can they?
I wish I knew. I don't know. All I remember is the gel tank and breathing in this gel, and that's all I remember. That's the only thing I remember, and I really don't know much about it because right then is when my regression pretty much ended at that point, and because I just really had enough. It was a long one, and I was tired.
You get information overload if you don't quit at a certain point. It just
starts
to get infected, right?
Yeah. So that was the end of the secret space program. Basically, there was a little bit more, but that's it. And I guess I will finish writing the book that I'm working on, a book for the third book that's going to take in all of this other stuff and kind of put together things. Whoops.
Miesha, what are the main things that your guides have commissioned you or asked you to share? What are the main things that you want? Yeah.
All right. Well, they first of all wanted people to know that there's a huge majority of positive beings out there. There's service to self here on our planet, but it's still a minority of amount of beings. There's positive beings, and that the consortium and the groups that like the consortium are working to wake people up to who they really are. Many people are waking up to the fact that they're hybrids themselves and that they have missions. And so they cannot come in and rescue us, but the only way they can help us is if when we ask for help. So I say that to people. If things are going horribly in your life, you have to really be earnest and set intention to get help from your galactics, because they will not interfere. They cannot interfere. So they have come in through everybody's consciousness, yours, everybody's. We're all a piece of the puzzle that we're finding out that we're raising the consciousness. We are the disclosure. We are the ones we're looking for. right?
Mm-hmm. Right, yes.
Yeah, so.
Well, that's what I get is that it's really, we're making all this up, so we're doing it. Like you said, you said we have simultaneous lives. That was one of my revelations, that we think in terms of linear fashion, but this is simultaneous.
Right.
And, we've been all of it, but we're only here thinking that we're human, but we've been it all. So, kind of like the ultimate prejudice against your own self. You've been it all, so just embrace that you've inhabited all these forms, and they're all parts of you, all aspects of you, all related. We're all related. We're all one big galactic family. So that brings me to your latest book. You have what is it called again?
It's called Galactic Genealogy, Planetary of Origin book. And the book is a colored book with many different types, like on my chart, or on my old chart I had, I added quite a few more, and I still have to do another one because I have to add some more, because we still have more that people coming forward with different types of groups of ETs and planetary origins and such. So it's a tool to use for people to find out what their galactic genealogy is. Everybody's interested in what their genealogy is on Earth, but what's more important is their genealogy out there where we come from. So with the dowsing with the pendulum, I encourage people to do this, and then I also do readings for people. I do galactic light language and galactic sessions for people to find out what their galactic planet of origin is. And
Miesha, what is your planet of galactic origin?
Okay, mine is Orion, Sirius, Pleiadian, Lyran, Arcturian.
So it can be
far out.
And reptilian, because I've also had a reptilian life, but that was on Sirius.
So when you find out this, how does that benefit or affect this life?
It connects you with your galactic family, and so you have an actual relationship with them. You communicate with them. You can hear. You get downloads. You can hear their messages. You can be guided through different things to get their messages. It really has changed my life. I first started as I said, I'd spoken galactic language while I was a child. My church I was in, which was a Pentecostal church, which also, by the way, was where the ritual abuse happened too. But they spoke in tongues. There's probably tongues of the demons, but mine was different. But I shouldn't say that. Not everybody in that church was that way. Just the deacons. But they would never be able to understand what my language was, because what we call it is edified. And so, I would be speaking this different language at the youth, services and things like that. And, they'd think they couldn't tell if it was what it was. Is it angels? Is it Indians? Doesn't look like, doesn't sound like them. What are we? So they could never find out. And I knew that I was talking to my galactics. Well, I didn't know then. I found out later that that's exactly who I was talking to. So, but one day about 4 years ago, a little being was talking to me when I woke up. And he was talking, and he actually was a hybrid child of mine. And he was talking to me. He was about 3.5 feet tall. And I have no idea what his age was, but he was talking to me. And then I started talking that language. And from then on, they said that it is very important. We've been talking to people and speaking with them in their dream time. This is a way for us to secretly talk to them without the powers that be cannot know what is being said. So we can help, and I can't remember the word they use, but let's say minister. That's not the word they use, but we can minister to you and help you and talk to you without anyone ever understanding and knowing except for you and your heart. So when a galactic language comes through with people, it's usually for people, it can be everything from healing to clearing to a message for them. Because I actually teach a galactic light language class that I teach every Friday now. And I do that on Zoom. And if anybody wants to check that out, that's on Facebook. It goes on Facebook. You can go to my site, Starseed Awakening, ET Contact Experiencer Group, or your Starseed Awakening group, or even my Starseed Awakening Radio like page. So you can find out the information. And of course on the events, I put the events up. So along with that, I teach the galactic light language to people who are already having something going on. They're automatic writing. They're getting little bits and pieces of language. Maybe they're waking up speaking it. So I'm helping them learn how to use it and connect with their galactic family. And people, like I finished one class, it's a 10-week period, and the 10-week class ended, and the people who were not even speaking galactic language except for just a couple of words were fluently speaking multiple galactic languages and were understanding and translating it. So translation comes through after training, basically. I self-trained myself and got the translation through pictures and imagery, because that was another thing. I was an interfacer in the MILAB programs when I was taking an underground basis. So I could interface with pictures and see the pictures that would come through with the ETs. And as you know, that's how they communicate. So that's one thing I'm doing. And then the other is working with the chart and helping people find out what the galactic planet of origin is. I also do my experiencer groups. I have 3 now. Well, it's actually 2 a week and then 1 every other week. But they're ET experiencer, starseed, hybrid. Find out about your ET experience and come and share and talk about your experiences. And then I have MILAB and MK-Ultra, DID, Super Soldier, Secret Space Program. Come and talk about your experiences. The one is on Wednesday at 4 to 7, and the other one is Sunday from 12 to 3, and then the last group I started is every other Friday. So not this Friday, but next Friday I'll have it. And that is not Friday. Friday is the Galactic Light Language class. Thursday is the
and these are all on Zoom. You use
these
Zoom
are all
platform.
on Zoom, right? And these are all free. I do I certainly appreciate and love donations, because I put all this is my free time I put into this. So, except for the Galactic Light Language, I do charge a small amount for that. But, that group is a different one. That is just beginners. It's for Starseed and Experiencer beginners that are just waking up to realize that they are more than just this human person. And so that's a really, nice calm for anybody to start.
That's really nice, because some people that are coming in new, they might get lost with all the people that have been doing it for a long time.
They get lost and scared, and some of them get scared. So I wanted to provide a place that they could come and they wouldn't be scared. That I only allow the very soft communication about this and positive, and about the the starseed journey and such as that. So,
well, that's great that you were sensitive enough to realize that was a need that had to be met.
Well, they told me. I was at a retreat. I was at a retreat with like 108 women. Well, not women. It was men and women. And there were people who were just getting started out, and they were so hungry to know. And so, I thought I should, the Galactic said, basically, you should start a group. And I thought, I've been going, are you kidding me? Another group? I don't have time for this. Are you kidding me? I said, okay, I'll make a deal. I'll do it every other week to start with. Basically, that's what they said to start with. But they said more people need to know. More people need to find places. So, okay. So this is how they started me in the first place back in 1991 was start an experience group. They were the ones that told me. They kept reminding me in my head, it's time to start an experience group. Actually, they said an abduction. They said it's time to start a group. And I knew at that time they're called abduction groups, but so I finally did. So, fast forward and telling you maybe about my website, and the Vector 5s too, because time's kind of running out here. So
yeah, we have, about 10 minutes. I wanted to just touch, and we'll end up with all your information.
Okay.
I wanted to tell everybody that, I highly recommend Miesha's groups. I've checked in on them, and they're just wonderful, and they're powerful, and I'm glad you separated that out. I didn't express that, but it's like, yeah, when you said you did that, I go, that makes sense, because there are some people that are just newbies, and and then when you're brave enough, you can go to the other groups, but some of the stories are just, they're over their heads, so they're new. So I'm glad you started that. Yes. And I know that Miesha and I both, we like to interview. If you've done your work and you're ready to come out of the closet, please contact both of us. I'm at aquarianradio@gmail.com. I'd love to have you on the show. I know Miesha, we exchange people. Who have you out on your show? And we reach different audiences. We reach different audiences. So please feel free to contact both of us. Now, I want to know about your children real quick. So you have a lot of people that are experiencers find out they have children in space, and they're hybrids.
Well,
I've been a little bit about your children.
Okay. Well, I've had 3 specific presentations, and then I had 1 presentation that was for more. But the 3 one was a cute little blonde girl. The first one was a baby, that was, like just this scrawny little baby. And when I was presented this baby, I immediately bonded, and the grays, it's what it was, the Zeta Reticulus, were, showing me imagery and said, this is a success. And they showed me imagery about how other people had been presented with and been frightened off, dropped the baby, ran from the baby, screamed, wouldn't touch it. But they felt it was a success because I did. So they wanted me to know they were happy with me on that. So from then on, my number was up. I was definitely a hybrid parent. So then after that, I was introduced to a blonde little girl with very spry, cotton candy hair with big blue aquamarine eyes. And then the next one was, I was in taken to a nursery. And each time these were like either in a kind of a vacant area where there's nothing there, like almost like a white area. I don't know how to explain it. It's just this white area. And, or it's sometimes even it's dark and has different colors, but you don't see anything else around you. But this time I was in a nursery, and I knew it was in a nursery, and I saw children playing. I saw other older children, and in walks this tiny little guy, and he looked a little bit bigger than some of them, but he was stocky, and he was light green, and he had scales. And I said, well, who's the parent? Who's the parents? And I knew it was me, and that I was the mother. And I said, who's the father? And they said, well, you call him Ayano and the all. So they used Ayano's genetics, and I have this very love energy towards Ayano, but I can never really remember any kind of physical relationship with him. I've only remembered let's call it a plutonic. So I believe that these were genetics that they used of his and mine and the all, which means all kinds of different, because reptilians and humans have to have a real stomped down genes there. They cannot, and there's a lot of reptilian hybrids, but they maybe 20% or 10% or, this type of thing. That's why they don't have tails and they have the lighter features and such, like more human features. And then the last presentation was again at the nursery, and there were all these kids around different ages, even some had grown mature, like maybe 18s, 19s, 20s, something like that. And again, I was taking in, I said, where's my child? Who's my child? And they said they all are. So it was something like 17 kids. Could have, give or take. No. So I know, and then
well, see, that's what's amazing is that you could have endless amounts of children because they're just taking your DNA.
And your DNA.
Eggs and DNA. They can do all kinds of techniques we haven't begun to think about, discover.
Exactly.
So,
I mean, do they even need our eggs? They may do eggs from some other woman and put our DNA in those eggs. We don't even know.
Right. They can mix from many different parents. I remember talking to Cynthia Crawford, and she said that she was a hybrid, and she said she had reptilian and mantis, and she had 3 or 4 different species besides human in her DNA. And she was very beautiful. Her eyes were extremely unusual. So
I remember she was, beautiful lady.
Yeah, beautiful person. But she knew she was a hybrid, and she knew when she died of brain tumor that she was going back to the ship. So,
well, a lot of people don't know they're hybrids. So it's really wonderful when people do know that they're a hybrid. But a lot of people are hybrids and don't know it. There's a lot more hybrids here than we can possibly imagine.
Yeah, and so do you, one final thing on that, do you know the reason behind the hybrid program? Did they ever give you a purpose for it? Or you understand it from your
They did. A new human that is void of anger and hate and doesn't want to have war and doesn't want to kill their neighbor. Basically, that's in a short nutshell. But that's what I was told, was to help our species.
Lovely. That's great. So we have just a couple of minutes. Tell us about your night vision goggles, your websites, whatever you want to talk about. Yes.
Okay, I have Vector 5 tours, which I do here in Las Vegas. And I do it under Airbnb experiences, so people can find it that way, or they can go to my website. I just changed it here. It's called UFONightWatch.com. So they can do that to book there. It always will take them right back to Airbnb unless they contact me, which I also have a phone number everywhere that they can find. I also am going to be on a UFO cruise. I'm going to be speaking at the UFO cruise, and I'm going to be presenting night vision tour there. And Tana,
when's that?
That is October 6th through the 13th. It's a Mexican Riviera cruise leaving from San Diego. And we're going to be having 3 stops, so it'll be really great. We're having night vision tours on the deck, and Tana Newberry has joined forces with me and is coming to help and be a helper with me and that as well. And I'll be doing my lectures, and I'll also be doing regressions. And if you go to that UFOcruise.com and get your tickets, please put my code STAR99, and I will give you a free session, a Galactic Light Language session.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah.
And then let's see, I'm going to be doing some more retreats. I just got finished with a couple of retreats that I was doing and speaking at.
So tell us about the retreats. What do you mean by retreat? Where are they in?
Well, one was in Sedona, and one was up in at Big Bear. And these retreats are specifically designed for people to just the spiritual aspect of it. Not really
Are
UFO.
you coordinating
Though
those,
UFO came into it, but it's specifically for people to, get in touch with their galactic and their spiritual side and things like that.
Are you creating those, or are you working with another person?
No, that is part of, and I should definitely tell them, that is part of Gypsy Sisterhood. So if they go to Gypsy Sisterhood Freedom Retreat on Facebook, they can find it there. There's going to be some new ones coming up, and that's, again, Gypsy Sisterhood Freedom Retreats, and she's going to be doing some new ones, and I will be part of those as well. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be at the UFO Congress, so come in and see me at the table. And you can go to my website, starseedawakening.org, to book for a regression or a galactic session. I am specialized in trauma release hypnosis and helping people with their experiences. And you can also find out all the other things I talked about today through my website as well. And I think that's it.
Radio at freedomslips.com. We'll be right back after this message.
Syndicalist commune. We take it in turns to act as a sort of executive officer for the week. Yes. But all the decisions of that officer have to be ratified at a special bi-weekly meeting. Yes, I see. By a civil majority in the case of purely internal affairs. Be quiet. But by a 2/3 majority in the case of more... Be quiet. I order you to be quiet. Look, you stupid bastard, you've got no arms left. Yes, I have. Look! Just a flesh wound.
I don't believe I've seen such a display of courage, skill, nerve, grace, and stupidity.
I'll do you for that. Oh, what? Come here. What are you going to do, bleed on me? I'm invincible. You're a loony. The Black Knight always triumphs.
Roundtable Live, Monday through Friday, 1 a.m. till 4 a.m. Eastern Time. Bring your mind, bring your ideas, bring your voice. King Arthur had nothing on us here at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com.
Most guys freeze. That's your cerebral cortex looking for an answer it doesn't have.
See? Even your brain knows you're screwed.
The body's filling with adrenaline right now, whether you know it or not. Your heart's beating fast. It's getting a little harder to breathe. The neurobiological system is telling it to run, but your knees are too weak to move.
Fear is not real. The only place that fear can exist is in our thoughts of the future. It is a product of our imagination, causing us to fear things that do not at present and may not ever exist. That is near insanity. Do not misunderstand me. Danger is very real, but fear is a choice. We are all telling ourselves a story.
You're listening to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. 100% listener-supported radio. Reporting to danger. Unafraid. Right here, where information never sleeps. Revolution. Radio.
original machine had a base plate of prefamulated amulite, surmounted by a malleable logarithmic casing, in such a way that the two spurving bearings were in a direct line